Hello, my name is Manfred Seiler from the University of Frankfurt. In this video, I will show the HPSG analysis of simple sentences as I'm using them in a Semantics 1 class. HPSG is the abbreviation for head-driven phrase structure grammar. This is a particular theory of grammar that has the advantage that it integrates all modules of grammar. This means we have a uniform architecture and uniform framework for doing syntax, semantics, pragmatics, phonology, and all other modules of grammar. This will allow us to model the interaction between these modules. In this video, however, I will only focus on the basic syntactic analysis. The original authors of this theory are Carl Pollard from Ohio State University and Ivan Zag from Stanford University. The main references are the HPSG textbook from 1994 by Carl Pollard and Ivan Zag, and the textbook Syntactic Theory, A Formal Introduction by Ivan Zag, Thomas Wasso, and Emily Bender. This textbook is not an HPSG introduction in the strict sense, but is very often used as one. In this video, we will look at these two sentences: Duncan died and Macbeth killed Duncan. These sentences contain proper nouns and simple verbs, so a transitive verb and an intransitive verb. On this slide, you see the basic syntactic analysis as it is explained in other videos on this website. Let's look at the first example sentence. Duncan died. The sentence consists of a proper noun that acts as the subject and a verb, an intransitive verb, died, that acts as the head of the sentence. In an earlier video, we have seen what the lexical entries of proper nouns and intransitive verbs look like. Let us define the lexical entries for the two words now. In our theory, we say that each linguistic sign, also each lexical sign, has phonological properties. Its phon value, which is Duncan, which we just indicate by orthography. We have a head feature, head properties that indicate the part of speech. So in this case, this is noun. Then we have valence requirements. And as valence requirements, we distinguish subject requirement, specifier requirement, and comps requirements. Proper nouns do not require any subject. So proper nouns don't combine with a subject. So there it's an empty list, which we indicate by these angle brackets. Similarly, proper nouns in English don't combine with a determiner. So we have an empty specifier requirement. And proper nouns don't take complements. So we have an empty complements requirement. We put these square brackets or lines on this slide around these pairings of attributes and values, which we call attribute value matrices. Now let's do the lexical entry of the verb died. Got the same attributes or features. So the phonology is died. The had is the part of speech, which is a verb. What about the valence requirements? Subject, specifier, and complements. Died is an intransitive verb, so it needs a subject. We have a list as the subject value. Since we do need a subject, the list cannot be empty. In this case, it has one element on it, and that element is a noun phrase. We said by convention that in this class, verbs don't take specifiers. So we have an empty specifier list. What about the COMS requirements? Died is an intransitive verb, so it does not combine with complements, so the COMS list is empty for this verb. This gives us the AVM, the attribute value matrix, for the verb died. This is the lexical entry of the verb died. So as you can see, we use a fully inflected form, so we are ignoring morphology. So it's not die, but we just start with the inflected form died right away. Before we go to the syntactic analysis, let's just repeat some HPSG terminology. So things like had and comes and fon, we call them features or attributes. These features or attributes have values, such as a verb or a list containing a noun phrase. We see earlier here. So for the verb died, we've got these attributes or features, and these are followed by their values. The values can be simple values or atomic values, or they can be complex values like lists. You see here an empty list or a list containing something else like a noun phrase or a particular phonological string like died. As I said earlier, these combinations of attributes and their values are called attribute value matrices. Also remember that we use these angle brackets to indicate lists. In the following, we will also use what we call tags, which you write as integers in boxes. Or here I'm using these square brackets, but that's actually supposed to be a box around the number. We'll use these to indicate that in a larger structure, the values of two attributes are identical. So whenever the values are identical, we mark that with a tag. Let's then look at our example sentence. Duncan died. You can see here I have just copied the syntactic structure and inserted the specification from the lexicon at the leaves of the structure. In the structure, we said that our empirical tests show us that the verb is the had and the noun is the subject. Our aim now is to derive the properties of the sentence from those of the lexical entries, or from those of the words that constitute the sentence. Sentences and phrases in general are linguistic signs, just like words, so they have the same attributes, or largely the same attributes as the words. So this means we'll assume that a sentence also has a phonology value, a had value, a subject value, a specifier value, and a COMS value. How can these be determined on the basis of the properties of the words in the sentence? To do this, we need principles of grammar. Let's start with a simple principle. It's the phonology principle. The phonology principle takes care of the fon value of a phrase. It says the fon value of the mother is a concatenation of the fon values of the daughters. When we go back to our sentence, this is the fon value of the subject, this is the fon value of the had daughter. So the fon value of the mother is a concatenation of these two. This means it's just concatenating one with the other, so putting them together in a larger list. In this example, there are two possibilities. We can either have Duncan died or died Duncan. So further principles of the grammar will have to make sure that the phonological ordering that we get is Duncan died. Now for the time being, just use tags. So we use the tag number 1 for the phonology of the subject, and the tag number 2 for the phonology of the verb. With this specification of the font values and our phonology principle, we then get two possible values for the font value of the phrase. So it's either number 1 concatenated with number 2, which is Duncan died, or it's the other way around. So it would be number 2 plus number 1, which is died Duncan. Of course, the second one is not what we want to have, so we will need another principle to get rid of that. Now, what about the had value of the phrase? Here we have another principle, which we call the had feature principle. It says that the had value of the mother is identical with the had value of the had daughter. In our structure, the verb died is the had daughter of the phrase. So again, we use a tag and say the had value of the had daughter. So this is a verb, that's the tag number 3. That one is identical with the had value of the mother. So you can nicely see the use of tag. I just put the tag 3 here, and this means this value here is exactly the same as the value here. They're both referred to by the tag 3. Now what about the valence values? When a verb combines with its subject, we are actually working on the valence list. So we are satisfying the valence requirements of the had. This is expressed in a more precise way in the following principle. The had-subject principle takes care of what happens in had-subject combinations. It's quite a long list, so let's go through that. First, say the font value of the phrase starts with that of the non-had daughter. So you see that this part interacts with the phonology principle. The phonology principle just said, okay, we either get Duncan died or died Duncan. Now, since we know that this is a had-subject combination, we can exclude the wrong word order by this particular part of the principle that takes care of had-subject combinations. And we say that the font value of the phrase starts with that of the non-had daughter. So we must have Duncan died. The other one will be excluded. The second part of this constrained on had subject combination states that the subject value of the mother is empty. So let me insert that. So the subject value of the mother is empty. So this means that the overall phrase is no longer looking for a subject, which makes perfect sense because the sentence contains the subject, so it will not need to combine with another subject higher in the tree. The next bullet point here takes care of the relation between the two daughters. It says the subject value of the had daughter is non-empty, and the element on the had daughter subject list is identical with the non-had daughter. So let's look at our structure. So we know from the lexical entry that the subject value of the verb died is non-empty. It's got a noun phrase on it. Now we want to make sure that the subject that the verb is looking for is exactly the noun phrase that it combines with. This is again expressed with a tag. So I can add the tag number 4. Here I put it in front of the noun phrase, Let's say, okay, the 4 stands for this noun phrase, and this is exactly this thing here. So this 4 is supposed to refer to the entire daughter. Now what you see here nicely is that the verb died is looking for a subject, a noun phrase, and this exact noun phrase is the non-had daughter that the had combines with. Since the had has found its subject, of course, the subject requirement does not have to reappear on the phrase level. So the subject requirement is saturated, and this is expressed by the empty subject list on the phrase. We now have the fon value, the had value, and the subject value of the sentence. What is still missing is the specifier value and the const value. When we look at the structure, we already see that the verb does not require any specifier or complement. Since the had of the phrase doesn't require any of those, the phrase shouldn't either. So this is expressed in the next 2 points on our constraint on had-subject combinations. So first we say that in a had-subject combination, the specifier and the const value of the had daughter must be empty. This is exactly what we have here. So this will make sure that a had only combines with the subject once it does not need a specifier or a complement. And we then say that the specifier and the const values of the mother are identical with those of the had daughter. So in this case, this means they are empty. Let's again use tags for that purpose. I want to say that the entire value of the specifier attribute is the same on the had daughter and the mother. So I use the tag 5 for the specifier value of the had daughter, and I use the same tag for the specifier value of the mother. I do the same with the const list. So the const value of the had daughter is tag 6, and the same is true for the const value of the mother. If we look back at our principles, you see that we have now included all the information from the principles in the structure. And you can also see that we now have arrived at the full specification of the properties of the sentence. These follow from the specification from the lexicon and from their interaction with the principles of the grammar. In this case, so far, we had the phonology principle, the had feature principle, and a constraint on had-subject combinations. Let's look at our second example sentence. Macbeth killed Duncan. In this sentence, we not only have a had-subject combination, but below that, we also have a had-complement combination. But before we go into the combinatorics, let's just look at the lexical entries. Macbeth and Duncan are proper nouns. So we already know what to do with proper nouns. Just include the fon value is Macbeth. The had value of the proper noun is noun. The subject value is empty. The specifier value is empty. And the const value is empty. And I put the brackets around it. Similarly for the noun Duncan, the fon value is Duncan. The had value is noun, and being a proper noun, it also does not need any subject or complement. Finally, let us consider the verb. The phonology is killed. The had value is verb. What about the subject, specifier, and const requirement? We said that all verbs in English have an empty specified requirement, and all verbs in English have a non-empty subject requirement. The verb kill wants to combine with a noun phrase subject. Killed is a transitive verb. This means that it also requires a complement. So it has a non-empty comps list. In this case, we've got one noun phrase on it, namely the direct object that the transitive verb wants to combine with. These lexical specifications now constitute the basis of our analysis. We insert them in, or we combine those into a larger structure, and then we have to derive the properties of the phrases. So this is the larger structure. So first, killed and Duncan combine into a phrase by a head complement combination, and then the resulting phrase combines with the subject in forming a head subject combination, which then will lead to the overall sentence. We already know what's going on in head subject combinations, but we still have to define the constraint on the head complement combination. But let's start with what we know. Let's do the font value first. We know that the font value is a concatenation of the font values of the daughters. So again, we either get killed Duncan or Duncan killed. Let me use tags again. So I'll use the tag 1 for the phonology of the verb kill, and the tag 2 for the phonology of the direct object Duncan. So this means that I either get 1 combined with 2, which would be killed Duncan, or I get 2 combined with 1, which is Duncan killed. The head value, the head feature principle, says that the head value of the phrase is identical with the head value of the head daughter. The verb killed is our head daughter, so its head value, let's call it number 3, is the same as the head value of the phrase. Now, what about the valence requirements? Intuitively, the verb killed combines with its direct object. So after the combination, the complements requirement of the head should be fulfilled. However, the subject requirements and the specifier requirements are not being dealt with in this combination. So they should just percolate up the tree, so they should be the same on the head daughter and on the phrase. We also don't want the verb to combine with just any non-head daughter, but we want to make sure that the noun phrase that occurs on the comps list of the verb is exactly the noun phrase that it combines with. Now all this is expressed in our constraint on head complement combinations. So this constraint is given here. It is built very much in parallel to the constraint that we've seen on head subject combinations. So the first point in this constraint makes sure that we get the right linearization, the right phonology. It says the font value of the phrase starts with that of the head daughter. This means that we can exclude the order Duncan killed, because this order would start with the non-head daughter's phonology. And we said in this constraint that the font value of a head complement combination starts with the head daughter's phonology. So that's the difference between the phonology of a head subject combination and that of a head complement combination. The next point says that the comps value of the mother is empty. So we say the coms value of the mother should be empty. And it should be empty because the coms requirements of the had are taken care of within the combination. And this is expressed by the next bullet point. The coms value of the had daughter is non-empty. And it is the concatenation of the non-had daughters in their phonological order. The coms value of killed is non-empty, and should see that it is a list that has the complements in the order in which they occur in the sentence. Now in our case we just have one complement, so this order thing is not really playing an important role, but if you look at ditransitive verbs such as give, this will change. Okay, so let me just use the next free tag, that's number 4. That is the element on the coms list of the verb. And this is exactly the non-had daughter. If you go back to the principle, it says the coms value of the had daughter is non-empty, and it's the concatenation of the non-had daughters in their phonological order. So here we just have one non-had daughter, it's just one element on the list, and this is exactly the non-had daughter. The last bullet point in the had complement constraint specifies what happens with the subject and the specifier value. Here we say that the subject and the specifier values of the mother are identical with those of the had daughter. On the had daughter, we have a subject value that is non-empty, and the same should then be the subject value on the mother. The specifier list on the had daughter is empty, and the same list should be the specifier value of the phrase. I'm using the tag 6 for that. As you can see, we now have the full specification of the properties of the verb phrase of the combination killed Duncan. Again, all the properties followed from the specification in the lexicon and their interaction with the principles of grammar. In the next step, this verb phrase will combine with the subject Macbeth. This is a had-subject combination, so the constraint on the had-subject combinations that we have talked about earlier will apply here. But let's start with the phonology principle. The phonology principle says that the phonology here is the concatenation of the phonologies of the daughters. So we already know the phonology of the had daughter is 1 plus 2, that has killed Duncan. The phonology of the subject is Macbeth, using the text 7 for that. So we either get Macbeth killed Duncan or killed Duncan Macbeth. 7 plus 1 plus 2, or 1 plus 2, to which we add the phonology of the other daughter. It's one of those two. What about the had value? The had value is taken care of by the had feature principle. This principle says that the had value of the mother is the same as the had value of the had daughter. So again, we get the tag 3, and the tag 3 stands for verb. What about the valence requirements? Or what about the valence values? There we have to consult the constraint on the had-subject combination again. Let's go to the corresponding slide. So first we learn that the phonology of the had-subject combination must start with the phonology of the non-had daughter. This then excludes that order. So it excludes the order killed Duncan, Macbeth, and we know that in English we can only have the order Macbeth killed Duncan. The other bullet points, as we saw, have to do with the valence lists. In the head-subject combination, the subject value must be empty on the mother, must be non-empty on the head-daughter, and the element on the head-daughter subject list must be exactly the non-head-daughter. So let's include that here. The subject list on the mother must be empty. The subject list on the head-daughter must be non-empty. So it's not list number 5. Number 5 is a non-empty list. So I can just add that here, just sort of make it more precise what that list that is. So that's a list with a noun phrase. And the element on that list must be the subject. So that's now tag number 8. So this thing must be the non-head-daughter. Now, do you see the difference between the tags number 5 and number 8? Number 8 refers to the element on the list to this noun phrase, which ultimately is the noun phrase Macbeth. The tag number 5 refers to the list containing that noun phrase. Now we've got two more attributes whose values we have to derive. Let's consult the principle again. It says the specifier and the coms values of the head-daughter are empty, and the specifier and the coms values of the mother are identical with those of the head-daughter. So again, this means they are empty. The coms value of the mother, the coms value of the head-daughter is empty, which was a consequence of the constraint on head complement combinations. The specifier value of the head-daughter is also empty, which follows from the specification in the lexicon, where we said that the tag number 6 is an empty list. The last point to add to the structure is this requirement that the specifier values and the coms values of the head-daughter and the mother are identical. So the specifier value on the mother is the list 6, which is an empty list, as we saw here. And the coms value on the mother is the same as the coms value on the head-daughter, which is then the new number 9, the new tag number 9. So it's also an empty list. And this is the full analysis. So if we expand all the properties here, we get the font value of the mother is Macbeth killed Duncan. So it's 712. Macbeth killed Duncan. The head value is number 3, and number 3 is a verb. The subject value is empty. The specifier value is number 6, and tag number 6 is also an empty list. And the coms value is number 9, which is also an empty list. As you can see, we have derived all the properties of the overall sentence from the interaction of the lexical specifications of the words occurring in the sentence and the general principles of grammar. In our case, we had the phonology principle, the head feature principle, and then two constraints on individual combinations, namely on head-subject combinations and on head complement combinations. In our very simple grammar, we'll assume that there's a very small set of syntactic combinations, and every phrase must be one of those. So this is indicated here. Every phrase is either a head complement combination, a had subject combination, a had specifier combination, or a had modifier combination. In the Semantics 1 course, we'll only look at had complement combinations and had subject combinations. And those are the ones we've just looked at with these two examples. So this brings us to the end of this video. In a short summary, we've seen that all properties of phrases follow from the information in the lexical entries and the principles of grammar. We've now provided a fully formalized analysis of the syntax of our simple sentences, and the structure for this analysis was derived based on empirical tests, on empirical observations of the syntax of English. And this has now been augmented with a particular syntactic theory. So if you look back to a former video on the basic steps in syntactic analysis, so what we did in this video was the final step, the sixth step in the analysis. You'll find the other videos on the syntactic analysis and additional material on this link, our wiki for lexical resource semantics, and this video was just part of a series of videos provided on that site. I would like to thank you for your attention. I hope you have learned how to do basic HPSG analysis for simple sentences of English, and I hope that this video will be useful for you as a point of reference if you work on your own sentences. So I hope that this video will be a useful point of reference for you if you work on your own sentences. Thank you very much. Goodbye.